Hello everyone. My name is Srikant Bahati. I'm a Principal Solutions Architect on Amazon QuickSight. Have been with QuickSight team for a little over 3 years. Outside of this, I have been a software engineer, principal engineer, solutions architect, data architect. Have 16 plus years of experience in IT industry. One of the early adopters of QuickSight with almost 6 plus years of usage now. So very early phases of QuickSight, I was one of the early users. Happy to be here to present trusted identity propagation with Amazon QuickSight. All right. So QuickSight, let's start with authentication types that QuickSight supports, right? QuickSight supports IAM federated identities and QuickSight managed users, as you see on the screen here. That is where you will be able to have authentication for your QuickSight account with single sign-on if you're using any third-party identity provider in the form of SAML or OpenID Connect. Additionally, it also supports federated identities through IAM, and finally, it also supports QuickSight managed users, which means you can create your users directly in QuickSight and still be able to use and have users log into QuickSight using a username and password. So that is the first type there. Second type, where it says use IAM federated identities only, that doesn't support QuickSight managed users, which means you you support only federated identities from either IAM or your third-party identity providers. Third one is Active Directory, where you can connect to your Active Directory. QuickSight can connect to your Active Directory and inherit all your groups, users into QuickSight, so you do not have to manage it outside of your Active Directory anywhere else. Finally, the IAM Identity Center integration that was recently released. It's been recent in the sense it's been like some time now, but yeah, this is where your centralized identity happens in AWS, where you have IAM Identity Center backed identities, which means you can connect to your third party identity providers and centrally manage all of these identities without even worrying about uh, creating them for AWS or any other applications within AWS. So this acts as your centralized identity store for AWS and all other services. And for today's session, we will be focusing on AWS IAM Identity Center because this sits at the heart of your trusted identity propagation, right? So without IAM Identity Center, it is not possible to have trusted identity propagation as of today in AWS ecosystem, because that is where our all identities will be stored. One beautiful thing about IAM Identity Center is it can automatically inherit all your users from your third-party identity providers. You can hook your Active Directory and bring all your users and groups automatically synced into IAM Identity Center using SCIM protocol, which is supported by IAM Identity Center, which means if you are onboarding your users in your third-party identity provider, if you're offboarding users, removing users from identity provider or groups, you do not have to worry about deleting them in IAM Identity Center. And downstream applications who use IAM Identity Center as identity, in that case you do not have to worry about even removing users from those. It is automatically being trickled down to the applications. In this case, QuickSight is an application that is going to use IAM Identity Center, and all of those users identities that you manage in your third party identity provider are automatically being taken care of, handled or managed through IAM Identity Center. So like I was telling it earlier, you can say you can have centralized identity configuration with IAM Identity Center. Here, you can connect to your existing identity provider with AWS, where you have Azure Active Directory, Microsoft Active Directory, Okta, or any other like Ping. There are tons of third-party identity providers that are available that can all be connected with IAM Identity Center to manage your identities. Why will you do that? It will streamline your identity configuration. That way you can have centralized identity instance for all applications, and at the same time you continue using and managing them through your central identity provider of your choice that your company is using. All right. So what was recently launched? The today's topic is trusted identity propagation in QuickSight with Redshift. So recently in December, we launched support for trusted identity propagation from QuickSight to Amazon Redshift. That is through IAM Identity Center. What additionally it was launched was like through Lake Formation as well. So it is supported for both Redshift and Lake Formation. So Redshift supports now that, and so does QuickSight supports it. So that is new, something that we have launched. And how does it work is what I'm going to cover as part of this session today. All right. So in this diagram here, you will see that on the left you have your identity providers, Ping Federate, Okta, Azure, whatnot, and you are connecting all those identities to your IAM Identity Center, which is in the middle. And from there on, QuickSight is able to inherit all those identities automatically. When you set up your QuickSight account with IAM Identity Center, it inherits all those groups, users, etc. from IAM Identity Center, and downstream it is then able to process those to your AWS data sources and propagate. As of now, it is Redshift and Lake Formation, and Athena is supported through Lake Formation. So those are the trusted identity propagation sources that are supported out of the box today. So in that case, what does this mean? When we say trusted identity propagation, what happens is when you inherit all these identities into IAM Identity Center, you have applications created for each of these data sources along with QuickSight. Now, those applications inherit all these identities in IAM Identity Center, and you grant individual users access to data. For example, in Redshift, you have a catalog, you have a schema, and within those schema, you have a set of tables. In Redshift, what you do is you're granting access to set of schema, set of tables to a particular user from IAM Identity Center. And based on that grant, now when user goes into QuickSight and connects to Redshift, there is a new option enabled where you will be able to uh, now pass that identity to Redshift and say that, hey, what are all the permissions you have for this user? Can you give me data for only that? And you can manage your row level security, column level security, table level security, and schema level security all at Redshift level, which means you are centralizing that governance at Redshift level. You're not doing that in multiple places. Back in the day, before identity propagation was supported in QuickSight, you were using a service account or a DB user to log in and create your data source in QuickSight. And those were the permissions that were inherited by every single user, be it an author, be it a reader, or any other user, right? And which means if that user had access to all the schemas, all the tables, your end user will see all the data from those tables. And to manage your row level security and column level security, you are managing those rules, you are creating those rules in QuickSight and applying them on identities in QuickSight. Now you no longer have to do that because all the identities are being inherited from IAM Identity Center. So it's a centralized identity store now. And your row level security, your schema level security, your table level security is happening at your data source. And when a user is accessing a dashboard in QuickSight, those identities are, again, QuickSight is also using IAM Identity Center, so QuickSight knows who the user is. QuickSight passes that information to the underlying data source in the form of single sign-on. And at Redshift level, when the data is being retrieved from Redshift, at that point, you are able to apply those rules that are configured in Redshift and give only data that the user is entitled to use. And this is applicable for all your authors, readers, anyone who is accessing the dashboard, right? So at a high level, that is your trusted identity propagation, which means you have to establish that trust between these different services, right? So identity propagation architecture here explains that for you. For example, on the left here, when the user is logging in, the user navigates to QuickSight to load QuickSight. User authenticates with your IAM Identity Center and Okta. That is your step 2 and 3. Once that user is authenticated, upon successful authentication, a SAML assertion token is passed back to IDC. in that case, IDC uses that assertion and creates its own token, OIDC token for the user, and passes it back to QuickSight. Now, QuickSight understands that this OIDC token and sends those OIDC token. If you look at point 7 here, QuickSight gets temporary credentials for the user using STS for Redshift, and then passes those temporary credentials to QuickSight at runtime, and Redshift at that point validates, gets the user's identity from that temporary token, validates those rules that are configured in Redshift for that particular user, and returns only data based on group assignment or user assignment to QuickSight, and QuickSight displays only that data to the to the user on that particular dashboard. So in a nutshell, it's all like configuration that happens behind the scenes. The rules that are configured in Redshift, those are applied, and QuickSight is only taking the identity and passing it to the underlying service, in this case Redshift, to be able to validate those rules and bring it back. So there is less maintenance. If you think about it, you're maintaining it at the data source level, so you change it at data source level and it is at runtime applicable directly. Whereas if you had to do it in QuickSight, you had to manage those rules, you had to apply those rules, and then based on the user's identity and that particular rule or group, those row level security were executing at Amazon QuickSight level. But then how does it help to have it at central location? Let's say if you are using any other application that is backed by IAM IDC, now that you do not need to maintain those rules in multiple places. You are maintaining them at the source level, which means any application using IAM Identity Center and Redshift now can utilize those rules that are configured in Redshift central location and be able to apply those rules at runtime to fetch data that is only applicable for the user, right? So that is IAM identity propagation overall, where you do not have to manage different rules in QuickSight. You do not have to manage identities, manage users in QuickSight. You can manage them in Okta. So there are several benefits of using this, right? Uh, One thing is your user and group management happens at your identity provider level, so you no longer need to manage and create and handle those users and groups in QuickSight. Number two, with centralized identity store in AWS, you can apply those users groups to all the applications within AWS. Number three, you can have centralized configuration for your row level security, column level security, table level security, schema level security at your data source level, all when integrating with IAM Identity Center. All right. So next, I'll briefly show you how this looks. Okay. So here, what happens is I have an account here where I have enabled IAM Identity Center through organizations, and I can invite other applications within my organization, other accounts within my organization. In this case, what I'm showing you is I have a IAM Identity Center enabled in my organization at this account level, and where I have a configuration of Okta. I have configured Okta as identity source for this, where all my users, if you notice here, all these usernames, I'll log into Okta as well here to show you. I'm using a developer account for Okta here just to demonstrate. Right, in Okta, within my directory, if you look at groups, to start with groups here, where you will see I have QuickSight readers, QuickSight authors, inventory, admins, marketing, finance, Okta administrators, and everyone. Whereas in people, you will see finance reader, finance author, inventory reader, inventory author, my account Sribahet +1. Now, if we go back to IAM Identity Center, you will notice all those users are here. And when we go to groups, you will see QuickSight readers, inventory group, QuickSight admins group, QuickSight authors group, finance group, and marketing group. Now, this is where I have integrated Okta with IAM Identity Center. I have an account here, which is also part of my organization there. So I'm able to inherit that IAM Identity Center into this account. And now I'll also show that I have signed up for QuickSight. Here I have QuickSight security features where when I sign up to this account, it shows like, okay, I have only administrative rights because I'm logged in as an IAM administrator here. So to be able to show IAM permissions and other QuickSight access, I will have to be logged in as a QuickSight user or IAM Identity Center user. Here I am an IAM admin user who has permissions to manage my VPC connections, security and permissions, and other things, right? Now, the second thing I will show is here. I will log out. So I'm coming into QuickSight. If we go back and talk about that architecture diagram, user is coming into QuickSight. I'm going into QuickSight security features account. Now here is where it is going to redirect me to access portal. And then from there, it is going to redirect. Actually, I will have to log out of Okta here so you can see how the flow works. I was already logged in, so it is treating me as logged in user there. I have logged out of Okta. Log out of QuickSight again. So it will redirect me to the IAM Identity Center, and from there it is going to redirect me to the identity provider Okta. Now you can log into Okta. Once you logged into Okta, it brings us back to QuickSight because of my relay state parameter and where I started from. There are multiple flows that this is supported with. There is a service provider initiated flow and an identity provider initiated flow. Alternatively, what I could have done is I could have directly gone into my Okta and then app dashboard, and from the app dashboard I could have clicked on QuickSight and landed in the same place. Now when I go to datasets, create a new dataset, I'm going to go ahead and choose Redshift. I'm going to say Redshift trusted identity. I have my Redshift cluster. It's using a VPC connection because it's in a private space. Now you will see that there is a new option here where back in the day you had only database username and password, which you can do, but then you cannot have that customized. But now I can just say single sign-on, connect to Amazon Redshift with single sign-on credentials from your identity provider. Now in this case, when I go to create data source, it is going to use the identity from identity center and apply that. I can go to sales schema, revenue schema, select preview data. Right now in my Redshift, I do not have access to this user. That's why the permission denied for relation revenue. That is what it shows. This is happening because this user, this identity user, which is Sribahet +1 at Amazon.com, that is a user uh, in my IAM Identity Center, is part of a group called QuickSight admins, and this user does not have any access granted on the database. So that is the reason it is showing that. But what we can do now is we will go to Redshift. Before explaining how this work, right? Let me go ahead and change this. US East 1. So I have my cluster that we were trying to connect, QuickSight Redshift cluster. So what happens is within your cluster, so within Redshift, you have to enable IAM Identity Center connections, where I have a Redshift uh, IAM Identity Center connection enabled. I have this connection. You have to create this connection through IAM Identity Center application, right? This is the managed application. This is sitting in another account. That is my organization account. That is where my IAM Identity Center is enabled. But then I have this application, Redshift application, that is talking to this IAM Identity Center to inherit all the identities, right? So that is happening. This has to happen. And then there is a second one. Let me also bring a document to explain how it works. This is going to soon be released as a blog post, so you will be able to take it and apply it. Uh, So this was the architecture diagram we just saw earlier. And here is where what you can do is after configuring Okta, configuring Redshift with IAM Identity Center. Let me open this. So when you're creating that Redshift IDC application, you have two options. You can create it through either either AWS CLI or through UI, and you create that application. Once that application is created, this application has to be granted as a trusted identity in QuickSight. That is configure QuickSight with IAM Identity Center. This one is just setting up. Yeah. So there is a new API that we released to update identity propagation config, where you have to say that, okay, your service that you want to propagate is Redshift and your authorized targets are your application ARNs. These application ARNs are coming from, once this is created, here there is the Redshift application ARN. This is the ARN that you will use in order to have the trust relation between QuickSight and Redshift at that point using the IDC, right? Once you define this scope, now QuickSight understands that whenever single sign-on is there, it is going to go find what application, it's going to find that application. It creates a role as well. That is the role it is going to use and pass user's identity. Based on that identity, then Redshift is going to go find the user and apply those rules. And if we look at dev, public schema, so we can grant usage now to those roles. We can create a role itself here, and we are saying that that role is AWS IDC QuickSight admins group. So here is where you can also create that AWS IDC as a namespace with that application. This is the application, and this is the Redshift role that it is using. Once this is created, this is now registered as an application in Redshift. And then within this application, now we can create these roles within the namespace. And that role is what is your various groups in your uh, AWS IAM Identity Center, right? And using that IAM Identity Center role, what we can do is we can then grant access to public, grant select on tables in public schema. So I'm giving these to access. Then you can change connection here, and you can connect with IAM Identity Center also from query editor in Redshift. Yeah. So if you notice now that so because the user we have granted only to public schema, the user is able to access public schema. Whereas if the user goes and tries any other schemas within uh, within the same connection, for example, this is the other schema this user does not have access to, it clearly gives that permission denied for schema, because this is the permissions are getting executed at runtime on Redshift. So you can very well see that now with only access to this particular schema, the user is able to only get that schema. So it's no longer using the database user. But if we were to go the old route of database user, now I can just say Redshift DB user connection and use the same thing. Dev, I'll use a database user name, AWS user. Create data source. And if I go to sales schema, revenue schema, edit preview data, there's no data in my table, but you can see that there is no longer an error because this is a DB user. Now this user is inheriting access for DB user, versus in the other case, the access was granted to that particular user uh, on Redshift. So those were the permissions that were getting applied, and this user was unable to even access this table. So that is how trusted identity propagation in QuickSight works. And soon you will have access to this blog post that I was showing. We are going to publish this, so you will be able to take this blog post and apply trusted identity propagation using QuickSight and Redshift in your own accounts.